Good news. The biggest hit sensation across the globe has been renewed for a second season. Bad news. That hit sensation is the coronavirus. Because as the New York Times just 2 days ago explains, that scientists in Oregon discovered a new variant strain of COVID-19 that was originally discovered in Britain and originally mutated in South Africa, yet it arrived in the United States independently. Now, this is of particular importance because Oregon's University of Health and Science explained on March 5th, 2021, that this strain, named B117, is more deadly, more contagious, and has impacted 2,500 people across the country in 46 different states. With this new variant strand, many people across the scientific community are now looking towards the Biden administration for some assistance. And sure, they've done some tangible actions with funds being directed to tackle this new strain, but the scientific community is now wondering if they've really done enough. And considering that the way that the United States handles the new COVID variant will determine whether or not we actually enter a fourth wave of the pandemic, it is vital that we ask today's question. Is the United States doing enough to address the new variant of the COVID-19? And the answer is no, because their response has been inadequate across the board. And we can see why for 3 reasons. First, because they've allowed states to ease restrictions. Second, because they've focused too much on the original strain. And finally, because they haven't cracked down on anti-vax propaganda. But the first reason on why the United States hasn't done enough to address the new COVID variant, as their response has been inadequate across the board, is because they've allowed states to ease restrictions. Now, as Wired magazine explains on February 22nd, 2021, that states like North Dakota, Wisconsin, and Iowa have eased mask restrictions, with states such as Texas going as far as pretty much allowing free open field, just whatever happens, happens. And the Biden administration has responded that this is their state's rights to get sick. And this is only going to get worse because the Biden administration not really doing anything about it has led to USA Today on February 16th describing the situation as like we're doing our best to help the virus and not stop it. These viruses are just going to mutate and spread quicker. With less people wearing masks and following guidelines from the CDC, it's going to lead to a fourth wave of the pandemic, showing the first reason why the US's response has not been enough for the new COVID variant, in that their response has been inadequate across the board, because they've allowed states to ease restrictions. But the second reason on why the United States response to the new COVID variant has not been enough, as it's been inadequate across the board, is because of the fact that they've focused far too much on the original strain. Now, as CNBC explained on February 17th, 2021, that the majority of funding has been going towards the original COVID strain, and specifically the vaccine meant to fight it. But that's not a great use of resources when the Moderna vaccine is 6 times less effective against this new strain, and when the Pfizer vaccine is 66% less effective against this new strain. But this is just going to get worse because it's not like this is the only new strain. As the University of Pittsburgh quantifies on February 19th, 2021, that there have been 677 mutations of the virus. But the United States, because of the lack of federal response, has only sequenced the genomes of 0.4% of them. In comparison, Denmark has already done the sequencing of over 50% of the strains. The Biden administration simply has had no coordinated mapping response of these new strains and has focused far too much on the original strain, showing the second reason on why the U.S. response to the new strains have not been enough, as they've been inadequate across the board. But the final reason on why the U.S.'s response to the new COVID variant has not been enough, as it's been inadequate across the board, is because they haven't crack down on anti-vax propaganda. As The Guardian notes on February 3rd, 2021, that anti-vax groups like QAnon have gone out of their way to pay for ads on social media sites like Facebook that target women who are of children-bearing age in order to sway them against getting a vaccine, spreading the old, outdated myth that vaccines cause autism. Now, besides the fact that that is an absolutely ludicrous and ableist assumption, it's straight up wrong. And it's going to make the situation worse when the Biden administration has not led a campaign that actually tackles this propaganda. Considering that the CDC on February 10th, 2021 notes that less than half of US adults say that they are very likely to get vaccinated, it shows that the Biden response has not been adequate, as it hasn't tackled anti-vax propaganda. Thus, when we return into today's vital question of is the United States doing enough to address the new variant strain of COVID-19, the answer is no, because their response has been inadequate across the board. And we saw this for three reasons. First, because they've allowed states to ease restrictions. Second, because they've focused too much on the original strain. And finally, because they have not cracked down on anti-vax propaganda. Look, the Biden administration has to be more proactive, has to track these strains. Because if they don't, there's going to be a new hit sensation spreading across the country for a renewed season. And this time it's COVID-19, but it could be worse in the future.